Have you ever prayed and heaven went silent? Have you begged for healing and pain only grew worse? Have you cried in the midnight hour and felt like God didn't even answer your whisper? You're not alone. And no, you're not forgotten. Sometimes, God is silent, not because he has nothing to say, but because he is preparing something greater than words. This silence is sacred. Let's go back to the garden. Adam sinned, and for the first time, heaven went silent. No thunder, no lightning, just silence. A silence that echoed through the trees and trembled in the leaves. Joseph dreamed, but then he was betrayed, thrown into a pit by his own blood, sold like property, forgotten in a prison. And God said, nothing, no angel, no explanation, just the sound of chains, and a heart learning to trust in the dark. Job was righteous, yet ruin found him. He lost everything. His children, his wealth, his health, his friends accused, his wife gave up, and God, silent. 37 chapters of torment, unanswered. But in chapter 38, the wind began to whisper, and the storm finally spoke. Job 38:1 says, "Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind." God's silence isn't rejection, it's refinement. It's the pause before purpose. Moses waited 40 years in obscurity. David ran from Saul for years before the throne. Jesus waited 30 years before performing a single miracle. And then came the cross, the spotless lamb lifted high, blood flowing, and even then, heaven was silent. My God, why have you forsaken me?" the Son cried, and the Father didn't answer. But it wasn't abandonment, it was fulfillment. The silence was salvation. God's silence is never his absence, it's his strategy. Then came the third day. A whisper turned into a roar. The stone rolled, death defeated. Heaven broke its silence with resurrection fire. And we knew God was never absent. His silence was a setup for glory. Before the Red Sea parted, Moses waited 40 years in the shadows. Before the crown was placed, David dodged spears in caves. Before water turned to wine, Jesus lived in silence for 30 years. Heaven's timeline is not ours. The waiting is the proving. So, why would a loving God remain silent? 1. To test the foundation of your faith. God doesn't test us to destroy us. He tests to reveal what's inside. A silent God tests a noisy heart. Will you still believe when the blessings stop? Will you still serve when the spotlight fades? 2. To strengthen spiritual muscles. Silence builds spiritual resilience. Just like muscles tear before they grow, your spirit sometimes breaks before it becomes bold. 3. To protect the plan. If Joseph had known early he'd be prime minister, he would have fought for it prematurely. But God hid it. He let him be sold, falsely accused, imprisoned, so that when the breakthrough came, no man could claim the glory. Sometimes God is silent because he's protecting what he promised. Even silence has a sound if your soul listens. It's in the silence, where faith is tested, not when the thunder roars, but when heaven seems quiet. And still, you believe anyway. There comes a moment in every believer's journey where perfection shattered in a whisper. There are moments when it feels like you're walking through a desert, barefoot and alone. The silence becomes deafening. The sky is empty. The prayers unanswered. But this, too, is part of the journey. It's not punishment, it's preparation. Sometimes your cries echo into the heavens with no reply. It feels like your prayers disappear into the sky, unanswered, unheard. But silence is not absence. The teacher is always silent during the test, and when heaven is quiet, it's often because something is shifting, unseen. There was once a man who lost everything. His name was Daniel, a missionary full of fire. But one year, tragedy struck. His wife died, his child became terminally ill, and his supporters left him. He fasted, he prayed, he cried. But heaven was silent. For 9 months, not a single breakthrough. Until one day, on a cold morning as he knelt by a hospital bed, his son smiled and whispered, "Dad, God is still with us." That same week, a stranger paid all his medical bills. His YouTube video about the journey went viral. His ministry reached nations. The silence was not the end. It was the tuning before the symphony. Let me show you key life situations where it often feels like God is silent, right before a major breakthrough. 1. When you're betrayed or abandoned by people you trusted. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned, yet no divine intervention was immediately visible. God's silence wasn't absence. He was preparing Joseph for a national breakthrough in life today. When friends betray you, when support systems collapse, when you feel wrongly accused or punished, silence means strategic preparation. 2. When you're in a long season of delay. Abraham and Sarah waited 25 years for the promise of Isaac. There were years when nothing seemed to happen, and they heard nothing new from God. In life today, long wait for marriage, children, healing, or a job promotion or scholarship, stagnation after so much effort. Silence means divine timing. 3. When you're obeying God. Yet suffering Job lost everything and heard nothing from God for 37 chapters. He was righteous, yet his pain grew. Then came the whirlwind and his breakthrough. In life today, you're serving faithfully in ministry or career, but still suffer losses. Praying and fasting, yet there's no answer. Doing what's right, yet still suffering. Silence means a test of trust. 4. When you're in the wilderness season. Moses spent 40 years in Midian with no voice from God before the burning bush moment. That silence forged the humility and fire he needed to lead Israel. In life today, periods of obscurity unknown. Years after graduation, being overlooked despite your gifts. Silence means character formation. 5. When you're on the brink of purpose. Jesus, before his public ministry, waited 30 years. Before the resurrection, there were 3 silent days in the grave. Silence preceded the greatest breakthrough in history. In life today, before a major launch or ministry, before your testimony goes viral, just before things suddenly shift, silence means final countdown to purpose. 6. When all you hear are accusations, not affirmation on the cross. Jesus cried, my God, why have you forsaken me?" No audible answer came. But behind that silence was Sunday morning, resurrection. In life today, when everyone questions your faith, when God seems silent while the enemy is loud, when your pain is public but heaven is quiet. Silence means set up for glory. God's silence is never his absence. It's his strategy, his scalpel, his refiner's fire. Hold on. The silence may be loud, but the whirlwind is coming. Just like Job, just like Jesus, just like you. You may feel forgotten, but God writes his best stories in silence. You may feel stuck, but heaven is building momentum. You may feel broken, but the potter is shaping glory in his hands. For I know the plans I have for you. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Jeremiah 29:11. Your silence is not your sentence. It's your setup. Your pain is not pointless. It's your preparation. Your silence is not punishment. It's prelude to power. You are just about breaking out. Your season is just about starting. Your celebration is about to begin. If this message spoke to your spirit, If you've ever been in that silent valley, then subscribe to this channel. We share real stories, faith truths, and hope for broken hearts. Like this video. Share it with someone in the silence, because when God is quiet, it means He's about to speak loud through your life. Have you gone through silent moments before? Share your experience with us in the comment section and inspire those passing through the same experience now. Faith and fire, fuel for the soul. Stay burning, stay believing.